You'll never guess what happened.
So this rich dude Bingley moved into the neighborhood and brought his richer, but slightly less charming friend Darcy. So obviously I'm gonna get my 5 daughters hitched. So there was a ball, and Bingley was like, oh my god, look at all these beautiful women and to dance with, right Darcy? And then Darcy was like, nah, I don't really like this crowd. They're kind of fugly. Little did he know, my daughter Lizzie was right behind him and heard the whole thing. I mean, she was like, that's not cool. What an egocentric, self-centered foopadoodle. Everybody basically hates Darcy. Sometime later, Bingley and Jane started having a little something, but neither of them really wanted to acknowledge it. So of course, when Jane gets sick at Bingley's Manor, I had to make her stay as long as I could. I mean, if I want my daughters to be well off, I'll do anything. Well, Elizabeth, bless her heart, went to help her sister out and had to spend all that time with Mr. Darcy. Unbeknownst to any of us, Mr. Darcy began to fall in love with my Lizzie. Well, anyways, Jane got better, they all came home, yada yada yada, and the girls decided to take a walk, and on this walk, they met Wickham. With some other dude who's not important, so Wickham was definitely a charming fellow, and my dear Lizzie seemed to like him. But all of a sudden, Richie Dumb and Richie D show up, and there's definitely visible beef between Darcy Boy and Wickham. So meanwhile, Mr. Collins comes to town and tries to get Lizzie to marry her. Of course, she said no. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because they were cousins, or the fact that he was really boring. Elizabeth then asked Wickham later at the ball, like, what's the deal with you and Darcy? And Wickham was like, well, you know, we used to be friends, yada yada yada, his father's inheritance, yada yada yada. Basically, Darcy's a big douche. So, Lizzie was like, I knew it, Darcy is indeed a douche. And then, the worst thing that could have ever happened in the entire universe happened. Bingley left for good and basically dumped my poor Jane. Later, Lizzie found out it was all Darcy's doing. He then tried to propose to her. He was like, oh my god, Lizzie, I know I'm like super rich and you or your family is like super poor, but it's okay. I'm over that. Let's get married. And then Lizzie was like, are you joking right now? You must be joking right now. You are a douche. My sister is sad because of you. And you were supposed to give Wickham money and you didn't. So ta-ta, good riddance, and bye, I guess. Needless to say, Darcy was shocked. He was all like, I'm shocked. So Darcy writes this long letter, right? Where he's like, look, there's been a huge misunderstanding. Wickham is the actual douche. I did split Bingley and your sister up because I thought she didn't love her. And yeah, I've been kind of douchey, but like, I'm not always like that, you know? Elizabeth, she reads this letter and she's speechless. Like, doesn't know which way is left, right, up, or down. It's crazy. She's like, holy biscuit, I've made a huge mistake. And actually, I might love Darcy too. Oh well, no one ever proposes twice. Turns out, Izzy visits Darcy's house. And Darcy just happens to be there. It's crazy. Anyways, he's like, oh my god, how have you been? Meet my sister, stay a while, blah blah blah. So Lizzie's like, oh, you know, I've been good. I don't hate your guts anymore. Wickham ran off with one of my stupid sisters, ruining my whole family's reputation. What's up with you? Darcy immediately is like, worry not, my sweet. I got this. So, he finds Lydia and Wickham and pays Wickham a whole bunch of money to marry her. And then come back to the house showing off. Meanwhile, nobody knows what Darcy did, so we all still hate him, obviously, except for Lizzie, of course. Finally, Bingley shows up, and he's like, you know, Jane, I still love you. Let's get married. Everyone is super happy, super happy. Then Darcy shows up, and he's like, so, Lizzie, you want to marry me now? And Izzy is like, of flipping course I want to marry you. Of course, we all thought it was a bad idea, but after Lizzie told us all, Guys, it's okay. He's cool. We're happy too. Especially since he got all of that money. The only problem was old, wrinkly Lady Catherine. I don't approve, she said. So in the end, Izzy was like, yeah, well, I don't care. Peace out. And then Darcy was like, yeah. And so, everybody lived happily ever after, and they got married. Well, not everybody lived happily ever after, of course, because Mary lives with us. Isn't that right, Mr. Bennet? Mr. Bennet! Mary, come wake up your father!
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you? Tell me what you wanna do, what you gonna do? Yeah, bad boys,